I didn't want to just do like a lot of people do, just like, hey, I got a book, here it is. I didn't really write it, I just gave it to somebody else, they wrote it and I put my name on it. Like, that's not what I did. I wanted to really like add the stories, hired a researcher, highly quotable, like just put the time and energy to create this piece of art. Hey there, I'm Dan Martell, serial entrepreneur, investor, and creator of SaaS Academy. In this episode, I'm gonna share with you how I use the buyback principle to write the book, Buy Back Your Time. I literally am going to deconstruct exactly how I applied the methodology I teach in my new book, Buy Back Your Time, to writing the book, Buy Back Your Time. It's like super meta and circular references, but I'm gonna unpack it and hopefully make it clear. But I gotta tell you the story because a lot of people don't know this. 5 years ago, I was asked to speak at an event, right, and do a workshop. A lot of people knew that, like, you know, I'm a guy that likes to get a lot of stuff done, and they'd heard about some of the playbooks I designed for my life and how I manage my assistants and my time and other things, house manager, etc. And they were like, hey, can you do a presentation? And it ended up being, I think it was called something like Fire Yourself or, you know, something like that. And there was like 50 people that came to that session. And I just shared my philosophy at the time of like, just how to get freedom from your business. You know, the biggest concern I have with entrepreneurship is great artists that hit what I call the pain line and decide not to keep building because growing means pain. And they stop. And then the world doesn't get all this art, their creation, the business value, because they didn't know how to scale themselves. So I shared this strategy and the feedback overwhelmed me. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something here. So it was funny as I started, you know, SaaS Academy about 5 years ago, and I was teaching this framework around like how to, you know, document, delegate, and disconnect. And I was teaching all this stuff. And it was a few years later that became the buyback principle. And eventually I had a good friend of mine reach out to me and says like, you need to write a book. I want to help you write the book. And I was like, you know, my philosophy is who, not how. So I know how I could get it done, but I need the who. And here is this person. He wanted to support me on it. So I thought maybe now's the time. We didn't know what book to write, but when he looked at all the different things that I've been talking about, he's like, this concept, the idea that we don't hire people to add capacity to our business, we hire people to buy back time out of our calendar so that if that generates more capacity, at minimum, it creates more joy and ability to keep playing what I call the infinite entrepreneurial game. And that's how the book came to be. But I want to share with you the strategies, the thinking, and then also like how I leverage my executive assistant and my house manager to be able to find the time to do all of this. So let's get into it. Number one is the buyback rate. So in my new book, I talk about the buyback rate, which is the monetary amount that you can afford to pay somebody to take something off your plate, right? Most people don't understand this. So the simple math, okay, the philosophy is that if you're generating profit and you're taking an income from your business, then you have income. So I usually say, how much are you paying yourself? How much profit do you make in your business? You know, and maybe those are separate, maybe those are the same. And then also discretionary expenses, like things that you put through your business that are probably not really business expenses, but whatever, because that's really your economic engine. That dollar amount could be $100,000, could be $50,000, could be $1 million. It's you know the number, I don't. Divided by 2,000, because that's the amount of hours there are in a year. That gives you a number. Let's call it $50, $100, $1,000, okay? Now I want you to have a 4 times ROI on hiring somebody to do stuff and then you taking that time and go doing higher value leverage things. You already know what your hour's worth, $1,000, $500, $100 based on the buyback rate. So if you want to do 4x ROI, then divide that number by 4, and that's where you get the 4 times ROI. And that dollar amount per hour is what you should be looking at things to hire people to do for you. That's the way I look at my life. Where did I find time to write my book? I just I made a list of all the stuff I spent my time on and anything that fit below the buyback rate. And in my world, I'm super lucky and blessed that that's a big number. that's where I started looking at building out more infrastructure around my companies, building more people around me to help support my family, support my training, the Ironman stuff, literally all the things that I write about in the book. If anything, writing the book increased my output, increased my capacity to produce, because I was kind of like stress testing some of these methodologies to the next level, right? So that's number one, is the buyback rate. What can you spend to delegate to somebody else? Number two is the book CEO. This is, the big one for me is I'm a who, not how guy. So I always ask myself, who can I hire to solve this problem, not how do I solve this problem? And at the time, that individual that reached out was my buddy Ron. And Ron is a very successful author. And he wanted to work with me to produce this book, okay? It wasn't like some of these services that you just pay to hire a ghostwriter and they get you a ghostwriter. This was a collaboration with Ron, with his agent and his team and the people he'd worked with and his researchers and everything. And then that way I was accountable to somebody else, okay? And I'm a big fan of doing this. In the book, I talk about, hacks for getting work done. And one of my favorite strategies is scheduling time with somebody else to show up and do the work. I want to be the talent. I don't want to be the driver. The moment somebody else is being paid to drive and push forward so that you can just show up and do your genius, beautiful, beautiful scenario, right? So number two is a book CEO, and that was my buddy Ron. Number three, because that was part of the replacement. In my book, I have this thing called the replacement ladder, but I talk about, getting the who, not how. So the book CEO. Number three is the D.R.I.P matrix, okay? D.R.I.P matrix, okay? It's 4 squares, 4 quadrants. And the XY axis is lights you up, gives you energy, and the bottom one is makes you money, okay? So what you want to do is the bottom left quadrant is delegate, okay? You want to get really good at delegating. That's the D. And the top above that, okay, so these are things that don't make you a lot of money and you hate to do. The things that you like to do but make you a lot of money, that's the replace, okay? That's the R, replace. The bottom right corner is invest. Things that you may not make a lot of money with right now but lights you up, that's invest. You becoming better. Skill sets, mindset, etc. And then the top right is where you want to spend most of your time, which is produce. That's the P, right? So delegate, replace, invest, and produce so that you can become more. So the more I worked on my book, the more I could produce, the more I could collaborate with my team. I actually have my videographer, Sam, again, buy back my time. They went through all of my video catalogs once I did the kind of the outline of the book to then insert videos that had me talking about the frameworks that I wanted to teach. Then we transcribed it and I worked with my editor to fill in the blank. So I didn't have to sit there and write from scratch. I could edit, not author. I mean, just so many, again, maybe you don't have videos, but I'm just sharing you my journey. I'm always looking for where can I get leverage? Do I have a team member that has experience and knowledge around something that I can trade time for money? That's the D.R.I.P matrix. So you always want to work your way up into the right corner of production, produce, because in that spot, things that create a lot of value and make you a lot of money, that's where I think playing this infinite entrepreneurial game where you don't have to retire from it, you don't have to stop it, it doesn't hurt. The more you do it, the better your life gets, can be incredible. Number 4 is the fully loaded year. It's actually a framework I learned from my coach, this guy named Taki Moore, and I give him full credit for the fully loaded year. But it's a 1-page diagram that shows every month and every day on the month as a linear representation. So you have January, February, March, April, May. So you have a 1-page, essentially, diagram or grid of your year. And what that allows you to do is plan strategically. So I always put my most important things in my fully loaded year. Birthdays, vacation, quarterly retreats with my wife, all the things that add to the rhythms that make me feel like I'm winning at life. And then we put all the other stuff, the external needs. But the book was a big project. So I had to look at my fully loaded year, okay, and figure out what are the big milestones. I got to get the first draft done here. And there was like the marketing plan. And then we signed the deal with our publisher, Random House Portfolio Penguin, right, to get the deal done. So there's a marketing book proposal and there's all these things. And I had to put the time I was going to need to allocate so that I could be present for it. And because I pre-planned it in the fully loaded year, Then there wasn't friction. See, a lot of you are dealing with making decisions to move your life forward, but you didn't talk to anybody about it. You didn't negotiate it. I sit down every quarter to review my fully loaded year with my wife. At the end of the year, we plan the full next year, and I'm already planning 60 months into the future, so that when I make decisions to write a book, start a company, invest in a company, do an Ironman, whatever it is, that there's visibility. It's like, well, what does that mean for your life? What does that mean for my life? What are the sacrifices? What are the things I'm gonna shift? Where else will I need to buy back some time to unlock that time required to execute on that project? And that would never work without implementation of the fully loaded year. Number 5 is the buyback lifestyle. A lot of people have executive assistants, okay? Many of them don't work with them the way I describe in my book, where I talk about email and calendar and having 100% accountability to your admin team. I'll just leave that like that, but most people don't do that. The buyback lifestyle is asking yourself, how do I take that leverage that I get in the business, having an executive assistant, and bring it into my home, into my life? You know, in the last 12 months, 16 months, I've moved cities, I've bought real estate, I've completed 5 Ironmans, I've started a new venture firm. Like, there's so many things that I've done that none of that would have been possible if I didn't have certain people in my life, like my house manager or hiring contractors to execute projects. Because I need to be able to wake up, produce, train, jump on, do things like this that only I can do, shoot videos. But then when that's done, move on and go for date night with my wife. I literally today, if you looked at my calendar, it was pretty much like start, create. I like finished up the training, delivered the training, team meetings, shoot, I think 9 videos, then go on a date night with my wife because the kids are gone, right? Like that's the buyback life. And one of my buddies, Garrett, he jokes, he goes, so Dan wants to teach you how to buy back your time so you can go do Ironmans. Screw that. Why would I want to do that? But look, you can do whatever you want with your time. I'm just telling you that, like, there's no way I could have done all those things. Oh, and by the way, write a book that's going to be a bestseller. Because I really, truly believe it. It took me 3 iterations, 3 years to write this thing. And it's because I didn't compromise. It took way more time than I ever thought, but it's the output that I want. It's the quality of it. I didn't want to just do like a lot of people do, just like, hey, I got a book, here it is. I didn't really write it, I just gave it to somebody else, they wrote it, and I put my name on it. No. Like, that's not what I did. I wanted to really like add the stories, hired a researcher, highly quotable, like just put the time and energy to create this piece of art. Honestly, I'm gonna call it that because I really put my soul into this book. But I wanted to share with you the principles and the math and the thinking that I use to write the book, because maybe you're inspired to do it in your own way, but when you look at your life and your calendar, you just can't see where you would find the time. The answer is you gotta buy back your time. So if you're interested in what I shared, I want to encourage you to click the link below to pre-order my book. It's called Buy Back Your Time. It is my life's work. I've put my soul into this, and I would love your support. So click the link to pre-order your copy today. And as per usual, I want to challenge you to live a bigger life, a buyback life, and get more out of your life and build a bigger business. So with that, hope this finds you incredible, and we'll see you next Monday. Peace.